I always tell my friends who are making a bracket to not overthink it, because that's when everything goes downhill. So what did I decide to do this year? Overthink it like crazy. So who will be in this year's Final Four? Welcome back, folks. In this video, we will be looking at statistics from the past 18 March Madnesses going back to 2002. We chose 2002 as the cutoff due to that being the first year available for the Ken Pom rankings, and we used a lot of his statistics for this video. We also used Sports Reference as a resource for this video as well. I say we because I want to thank my friend Andrew Balco for helping me with this video. We probably put in over 60 man hours into this video, and it's midterm season for us right now, so I am super thankful to have his help for this. We started with over 24 different statistics for 72 different teams and narrowed it down to 11 we think would be best to predict this year's Final Four and national champion. Before we get into this, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and comment below who you predict will be in the Final Four this year. So the first statistic we decided to look at was seed. Now, I didn't really think seed would be that big, but it ended up being kind of a huge statistic to narrow down the field. Over the last 18 March Madness tournaments, 27 of the 72 teams to make the Final Four were 1 seeds. 14 of the 72 were 2 seeds, while 9 of the 72 were 3 seeds. There were no 6 seeds to make the Final Four, and after the 5 seed, surprisingly, the 11 seed had the highest number of seeds, tied with the 7 seed for 3 out of the 72 teams each. The average seed was 3.083. For this exercise, we decided to cut it off at the 4th seed due to that covering over 75% of the teams to make it to the Final Four since 2002. Right off the bat, that cuts us down to 16 teams, including Gonzaga, Michigan, Illinois, Baylor, Houston, Alabama, Ohio State, Iowa, West Virginia, Kansas, Arkansas, Texas, Virginia, and Florida State, Purdue, and Oklahoma State. The next factor we decided to look at was the winning percentage for each team. We chose winning percentage instead of wins and losses due to the shortened season and teams playing a very different amount of games. Since 2002, teams playing in the Final Four fell under these categories. 21 of the 72 teams won between 80% and 86% of their games. 20 of the 72 teams won between 74% and 80% of the games. 16 of the 72 teams won between 86 and 93%. 6 of the 72 teams won between 93% and 99%. 6 of the 72% teams won between 68 and 74%. 2 of the 72 teams won between 55 and 68% of their games, and 1 of the 72 won 100% of their games going into March Madness. The average winning percentage for a team going into March Madness was 82.3%. We decided to make the cutoff for our winning percentage at 78.1%, due to this covering 75% of the teams since 2002 who made the Final Four had at least a 78.1% winning percentage. The teams who did not meet this requirement were Purdue, West Virginia, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Texas, Iowa, Florida State, and Virginia. The teams that remained after this round were Gonzaga, Baylor, Houston, Michigan, Alabama, Illinois, and Arkansas. We then decided to look at 3-point percentage. So for 3-point percentage, the worst Final Four team since 2002 was the 2012 Louisville Cardinals, who shot 31.8%, which ranked 270th in the nation that year. 60 of the 72 teams we looked at shot over 34% from the 3-point line. The median was 36.5, and the maximum was 42.2. We decided to make our cutoff for a 3-point percentage of 33.9%, just because it was just under 34%. As a result, Arkansas, who shot exactly 33.9%, was eliminated, and every other team I mentioned earlier remained alive. The next two categories we looked at, turnover percentage and average points per game, also did not result in any eliminations, but I wanted to mention them here. For turnover percentage, 23 of the 72 teams turned the ball over between 17.5% and 19.38% of the time. 22 of the 72 teams turned the ball over between 15.63% and 17.5% of the time. 20 of the 72 teams turned the ball over more than 19.38% of the time, while 7 of the 72 teams turned the ball over less than 15.63% of the time. The 2006 UCLA Bruins turned the ball over the most since 2002 with a 22.3% turnover rating, while the 2015 Wisconsin Badgers turned the ball over the least at 12.4% of the time. Go Badgers! For this category, our cutoff was 19.4% of the time, and all the remaining teams fell well below this category, with Alabama turning the ball over the most among the remaining teams at 18.7% of the time. The next category was points per game. Since 2002, 23 of the 72 teams averaged between 76.25 and 80 points per game. 18 of the 72 teams averaged between 68.75 points per game and 72.5 points per game. 15 of the 72 teams averaged between 72.5 and 76.25 points per game, while 13 of the teams averaged more than 80 points per game. Only 3 teams averaged less than 68.75 points per game. Since 2002, Kansas has averaged the most points for a team that made the Final Four with 90.9 points per game, which they did in 2002. The 2006 UCLA Bruins have averaged the least amount of points with 67.7 points per game. The cutoff we decided for this experiment was 72 points due to 54 of the 72 teams meeting that criteria since 2002. Like I mentioned before, the remaining teams all met this criteria, with Michigan averaging the least at 76.2 points per game and Gonzaga averaging the most at 92.1 points per game. The next category we decided to look at was adjusted offensive efficiency. This is the number of points a team scored per 100 possessions. Of the 72 teams we looked at over the past 18 March Madnesses, 54 of the 72 teams had an offensive efficiency of over 113.951. The average offensive efficiency since 2002 was 116.774, with the most efficient offense being the 2018 Villanova Wildcats, who won the championship with a 127.384, and the least efficient offense being the 2012 Louisville Cardinals, who had 105.207. A fun fact is that teams who make the Final Four with a seed of 7 or less only average an offensive efficiency of 111.18. Our cutoff for this experiment was an offensive efficiency of 113.951, and the only team to not meet that of our remaining teams was Alabama, who was a rating of 111.7. Gonzaga has the most efficient offense with a rating of 126.1. The next thing we looked at was average age based on the statistics on sportsreference.com, a great website by the way. Sports Reference used this statistic based on a player's class and the number of minutes they play, weighting players with more minutes more. Hopefully that makes sense. Since 2002, the average age of a team is 1.599. 54 of the 72 teams we looked at for this experiment had an age of 1.4 or more, and that's what we made our cutoff. The team with the youngest roster to make a Final Four was the 2014 Kentucky Wildcats team with an average age of 0.3, with the oldest team to make a Final Four being the 2005 Illinois Fighting Illini. Of the remaining teams we have left, all of them met this requirement, with Gonzaga having the youngest team with an average age of 1.6 and Michigan having the oldest team with an average age of 2.2. Stick with me guys, we only have 4 categories left. Next, we decided to look at defensive rankings. Of the 72 teams we looked at, the average national defensive efficiency ranking for a team that made the Final Four was 20.361. 40 of the 72 teams had a defensive efficiency ranking of 16 or higher. 4 teams tied for the highest defensive efficiency ranking, with those teams being the 2015 Kentucky Wildcats, 2008 Memphis Tigers, 2013 Louisville Cardinals, and 2019 Texas Tech Red Raiders. The 2017 South Carolina Gamecocks made up for their offensive woes by having the 3rd ranked defensive efficiency ranking. The 2011 VCU team had the worst ranked defensive ranking of all the Final Four teams, finishing with 126th overall in the nation. Of our 5 remaining teams, Baylor is the only one to be ranked outside the top 26 for this year's defensive efficiency rankings. They are sitting at 44th overall nationally. Now, don't scratch off Baylor too fast though, because they are the last remaining team in the South region. Illinois has the highest rated rank with the 5th rated defensive efficiency ranking. The next category we decided to look at was free throw percentage. When it comes down to the final few possessions, you're going to want to hit your free throws. The average free throw percentage for a team in the Final Four is 71.36%. The 2018 Villanova Wildcats had the highest percentage of free throws made, making 78.2%, while the 2008 Memphis Tigers had the lowest free throw percentage with 61.4%. 53 of the 72 teams to make the Final Four had a free throw percentage of 69.4% or higher, and due to that, we decided to make the cutoff for this experiment 69.4%. Of the 4 remaining teams, Illinois is the only team shooting less than that at 69.1%. As a result, our Final Four is Gonzaga, Houston, Michigan, and Baylor. But what if I told you we weren't done? I said we looked at 11 categories, and I've only told you 9 so far. The next category we looked at was points allowed per game. Our cutoff for this category was 66.8 points per game. Houston gave up an average of 57.9 points this season, while Michigan let up an average of 65.4 points, so both those teams are safe. But Gonzaga gave up an average of 69.1 points per game this season, meaning they do not meet the cutoff. As a result, based on statistics, the championship game will be Houston versus Michigan. The deciding factor for this game was strength of schedule. The cutoff for strength of schedule was 24th ranked nationally. Well, Houston had the 106th ranked schedule nationally, while Michigan had the 14th ranked schedule nationally. As a result, Michigan, as hard as it is to say as a Badger fan, is our predicted champion. To reiterate, our Final Four prediction is Michigan, who met all 11 requirements, Houston, who met 10 of the 11 requirements, Gonzaga with 9 of the 11 requirements, and Baylor with 9 of the 11 requirements as well. Some other teams to consider are Illinois, who met 9 of the 11 requirements, Alabama, West Virginia, San Diego State, Ohio State, Iowa, Drake, and Kansas, who all met 8 of the 11 requirements. Fun fact, through this research, we found that 50% of the 72 Final Four participants of the past 18 tournaments won their conference championship. Well, 50% of our Final Four participants won their conference champion. Guys, thank you so much for watching this, and Andrew, thanks again for helping me with this video. We put so much time and effort in this video, so I hope you liked it. We might make this a yearly thing if you guys really want that. Don't forget to let me know who your Final Four predictions are. Happy March Madness, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.